Hey friends, it is Jenna, what is up, and welcome back to the Board Game Garden, and welcome to a preview of this game right here. This is Sprites and Sprouts. It is published by Open Owl Studios, who's sponsoring today's video, so a huge thank you to them, and it is designed by Manny Vega, which you guys might know him by his other game, very well-known game, Flamecraft, and now he's coming out with a game called Sprites and Sprouts. And this is a game all about being sprites, which sprites are little, I guess, magical creatures that were introduced in Mythwind, which is another one of Open Owl Studios games. Mythwind is an open, kind of asymmetric cooperative game where each player is playing as a different character. And there are also these things in the game called sprites, which are, like I said, little magical creatures. And I will get more into the theme of the game and stuff like that in this video. So if you guys are interested in hearing all about Sprites and Sprouts, then just keep on watching. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoy. Also, hit the subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I will leave a link to the campaign for Sprites and Sprouts down in the description box if this sounds like something that you guys would enjoy. But yes, we're gonna get into the aim of the game, all the components that are in front of me here, which are prototype and subject to change. And we're also gonna get into how the game plays so you can see if it's something that you would enjoy. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this preview of Sprites and Sprouts, shall we? All right, so getting right into the aim of the game and a little bit behind the theming of the game. So like I said, this is set in the whimsical world of Mythwind. In the game of Sprites and Sprouts, the farmer has gotten up each day, or is going to get up each day, and he is going to go to his farm, and the sprites are actually there to help him with his farming, his crops, his garden, harvesting, and all of those things. So each player is going to be playing as a different sprite. There are 5 different sprites. Like I said, I'm playing here with Alita as well as Fix. So I have a game, a 2-player game set up here, but then there's also 3 other characters here that we have. You're going to be competing as these sprites, and the player or the sprite with the most victory points at the end of the game is going to be the winner. You're going to be getting victory points by trying to judge where the harvest is going to be at the end of each day, which I will get into what that means, as well as you're going to be completing challenge cards. Those are the 2 main ways that you're going to be getting victory points. And then, like I said, whatever sprite has the most victory points at the end of the game will be the winner. So yes, that is everything for the name of the game. We are going to get into the components, which, like I said, it is a prototype and everything is subject to change. But as for the components here, you're going to have the main board in front of you. This is going to be put into 2 different parts. So you have the main board here, that is the garden board, and then you have this kind of sideboard here, which is the farm board. This is going to be where all of the cards are going to be displayed. You have 2 different decks of cards. These are the challenge cards. So you have deck A and deck B, and you're kind of going to be going back and forth between A and B for a certain amount of rounds based off of player count. You have a spot here for the harvest cards. So there's going to be 1 harvest card, or possibly 2 based off of a farmer card that comes out that you're going to place into the harvest, and that is going to be the spot on the board that is going to be harvested. That is hidden information. So that is that. You also have, like I said, the farmer cards here, which one is going to be dealt at the beginning of every single day, and it's going to give you some different things that are going to happen each round. Lastly, for the farm board, you also have this area down here, which is a big part of the game, and this is the harvest tracker. So this is going to be a layout of all of the different crop tile areas here in the garden, and this is going to be how you're going to keep track of the information on the board and try to help you deduce where the harvest is going to happen, because there's a little bit of hidden information and deduction in the game with where the harvest is going to happen, where you want to place your workers in order to score victory points during harvest. So that is the board here. You have the victory points around. You have a 4x4 grid of crop tiles, which are going to be placed and flipped and turned and rotated. You're going to be placing your workers here out on the board, either on crop tiles or on the border. And this is where a lot of the game is going to be happening. Also down here, we have 5 different crop tiles. This is kind of like the pool that you're going to be able to draft from. And then as for the player boards, so each player is going to start with a player board. They're also going to pick one of the 5 different sprites to play as. You're also going to get 4 workers, which are these little tokens here here with your sprite's picture on them. And then each player is going to get one of the wooden meeples, and this is going to be how you're going to be taking your actions. You also have a board here which has 4 different actions that you can take. You have plant, tend, prep, and magic, so I'll get into all of that. And then at the beginning of the game, each player is going to be dealt 1 face-up challenge card, and then they're also going to be dealt 1 hidden challenge card that's going to be placed into their hand. And I do believe that that is everything for the components. You have the 3 other players over here. You have the second player here for our 2-player setup, and we do have the first player marker here. We have the green bag, which is the crop tiles. We have the purple bag, which is actually some skill tiles. So throughout the game, you're going to be able to upgrade your different actions by gaining these skill tokens and then placing them in the respective kind of action spaces below them. Either in the plant, tend, or prep area. You can't upgrade your magic action, but yes, that is pretty much everything for the components. But let's get into exactly how Sprites and Sprouts is played. So starting off, Sprites and Sprouts is played over various days or various rounds, and that is going to be based off of player count. So in a 2-player game, you're going to be playing 4 days or 4 rounds, and then in a 3 to 5 player game, you're going to be playing 3 rounds or 3 days. So that is the basic game flow, and each day is going to be broken up into 4 different phases. So you have start of day, you have sunrise, sunset, as well as end of day. So you're going to be going through those 4 phases each day until the end of whatever day you're playing to, either 3 or 4. And then whatever sprite has the most victory points at the end of that day will be the winner of Sprites and Sprouts. So let's get into the different phases, starting off with start of day. So the start of day phase is just a little bit of a prep to start the round. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to draw one of the farmer cards, and the farmer cards are going to do 2 different things. One is it's going to have a weather icon in the top left-hand corner. That is going to be some sort of weather effect that is going to happen based off of the icons. So you have sunny, cloudy, as well as rainy, and there's going to be 3 different things that can happen. And these things are going to be things like all of the crops in the drafting pool are going to be tended, so you would actually flip over all of these crops, which is really nice. Also, it could be that each player gets to draw a random skill from the bag, different things like that. And then additionally, we have down at the bottom, each farmer card is going to have some sort of ongoing thing for that specific round. It might have some sort of instant thing for that round, or it could have something additionally for the scoring for that round. So you're just going to read that farmer card and let everybody at the table know what effect the farmer is going to have that day. And the second thing that you're going to be doing in this phase is you're going to be drawing the harvest card. So there's always going to be one harvest card that is going to be drawn every single day, and that is going to be very important for scoring at the end of the day. Basically, challenge cards, there's going to be 2 different decks. There's going to be challenge deck A and challenge deck B, and each day you're going to flip-flop between the 2. So day 1 you're going to do A, day 2 you're going to do B, day 3 you're going to do A, and day 4 you're going to do B if you do have a day 4. But basically the challenge cards are going to be laid out like this. You guys will see also some B-roll of the card, but basically you're going to have at the top, in the top left-hand corner, a plot of land. So that is going to be a section in the garden. So the garden is laid out in letters A through D and then numbers 1 through 4. And then wherever that kind of connects is that plot of land. So this one here is B1. So I would go B and then 1. So this right here is B1. So you always have a plot of land kind of coordination thing there. Also at the top you have the card name. So this one here is cornrows. And then this card is also a challenge card. So this is going to be some sort of objective that you're going to try to achieve. So this one here is plots, and basically you're going to score victory points based off of how many corn are in one row. So you're going to score based off of the 4 different tiles in a single row, and then you're going to score based off of if each of those tiles at least have 1 corn in them. If you are able to get all 4 tiles with at least 1 corn in them, you're going to gain 4 victory points, and then for every tile that has a corn in them, if it's untended, you will get 0 victory points, and if it's tended, which means it's flipped over, you would get 2 victory points. So in this example here, there are 1 tended, so you get 2 victory points, and there is a full row with 1 corn in each tile, so a total of 6 victory points there, 4 plus 2. So that is everything for the challenge cards. It's always going to be, you want a specific configuration of the different vegetables or fruits in the garden, and you're going to gain victory points for them. But as for the challenge card for the harvest, so the card that is placed into the harvest space is going to be the card that represents the harvest at the end of that day. And simply you are just looking at the plot of land in the top left-hand corner. So for example, if this was the harvest card for this day, the spot that is getting harvested is B1. So like I said, this area right here, and I will explain how the scoring works once we get to that. But that is how the harvest card works. And that is the only other thing that you would do during the start of day. You would draw and place a challenge card in the harvest area. I will also add at the beginning of the game during setup, each player is going to get a face-up challenge card, and basically you are needing 5 pieces of information to place into the harvest tracker. So based off of player count, so in this situation we have 2 face-up cards because this is a 2-player game. So I would then deal 3 more cards face-up from the challenge deck, and then I would place all 5 of these pieces of information, so these 3 cards as well as the 2 cards that are face up in the player area, and those would be the 5 pieces of information that I would know and track here on the harvest tracker. And this is super important because you are trying to kind of figure out hidden information throughout the game and throughout each day. You are trying to figure out which plot of land or which crop tile is going to be the tile that is harvested. So you are placing these cubes in this area here to let you know that this is not the spot that is going to get harvested, because these are cards that you're seeing throughout the game and not the card that is being or has been placed here in the harvest area. So we already know here that it's not going to be A2, it's not going to be B3, it's not going to be C2, it's not going to be D2, and it's not going to be D4. So those are the 5 plots of land at the beginning of the game that you know won't be harvested at the end of the day. All right, so moving into the biggest phase of the game, which is the sunrise phase. And this is going to be where all players are going to be taking turns taking actions. Each player is going to be able to perform 4 actions. They have 4 workers, and each of those actions you are going to be placing a worker as well. So once every player has placed all 4 of their workers, that would be the end of the sunrise phase, and then you would go into the sunset phase, which is where you're going to determine the harvest and score for the harvest. But quickly before we get into that, let's go over all of the different actions that you can take on your turn. So on the player board here, you have 4 different actions that you can perform. There are 4 different stacks of boxes, and there's going to be an icon at the top of each of them. And the 4 different actions going from left to right are plant, tend, prep, and magic. Magic works a little bit differently than the other 3 actions, so I'll get into that. But at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get their little meeple of their sprite, and that is going to start on the magic spot. So you can't take that action. You actually have to move your meeple to another action every single time that you take an action. So starting on magic, you cannot take the magic action for your first action, so you have to move to another spot. So for example here, I could move my sprite to the tend action, and then I would take that action, and then going into my next turn, I would then have to move from tend onto a different spot. You always have to take a different action every single turn, getting into all of the different actions. So starting with plant. The plant action is going to allow you to add a crop tile from the draft pool here into the garden. So you're simply just going to draft one of the tiles here, and you are going to keep it on the side that it is face up. You have the brown side that is untended, and then you have the green side, which is tended. And with some of like the farmer abilities and stuff, these might be tend side up. So if you do draft it as tended, you would place it as tended. But if you draft it as untended, you will place it as untended. And you're going to place it in any of the empty spots on the board, and you can rotate it any way that you would like. And you're going to be placing this based off of your challenge cards that you have, because you are going to be scoring for the vegetables and fruits in the garden. And you're also going to be maybe thinking about what spot is going to be harvested that day. But you're going to be able to place this anywhere, and you're also going to be able to rotate it and place it down. And I will additionally say that if ever the garden is full, you can decide to replace another tile, but eventually throughout the game, which I'll get into, you're going to have these sprite workers on these certain crop tiles, and you can't replace a crop tile that has a worker on it, but you can replace a crop tile that doesn't have a worker on it. So that is the plant action. You're just simply taking one of those crop tiles and adding it to the garden. The next action that you can perform is tend. So this is, like I said, how you flip over the tiles to the tended side. And you are going to want to do this because a tended crop tile is always going to score you more, both for your challenge cards as well as for the harvest. So it is always really nice to be able to tend the different crop tiles that maybe are going to be included in your challenge card, or maybe where you think the harvest is going to happen. So when I take the tend action, I would simply just choose one of the tiles that are placed in the garden and flip it over to its tended side. And you can optionally, as well as you're flipping it, you can rotate it too. So depending on your challenge card or anything, you might decide to flip it and also rotate it to any direction. And then additionally, I will say that at any time with the tend action as well, you can just choose to rotate a tended tile. The third action that you can perform is prep. So this is how you're going to get more challenge cards and also how you're going to gain more information for where the harvest is going to happen at the end of the day. So when you take the prep action, you are simply going to take 2 of the challenge cards from the challenge deck, the active challenge deck. You're going to look at both of those cards and you're going to choose one to keep. This will be added to your hand. So this is actually hidden information of some of the locations and crop areas that maybe you will know that it is not the harvest spot, but no other player knows. And then the other card that you decide not to take is going to be revealed. You are then going to show the plot spot. So this one here is C1. You would then take one of the cubes, place it onto C1 here to let everyone know that the harvest is not going to happen on C1. This card would then get placed at the bottom of the deck. And before we get into the last action, I will say with these 3 actions, plant, tend, and prep, you are, after you perform your action, you are going to take one of your workers, so one of the 4 little tokens that you have here, and you are going to decide where to place that worker. You can either place the worker on one of the crop tiles. You can't place it on an empty plot of land. You have to place it on one of the crop tiles. It has to be an unoccupied crop tile. So if there's already a worker there, you cannot place your worker there, but you can place it on an unoccupied crop tile. Or you can decide to place it on one of the bordering spots. So you can place it on any of the 1 through 4s. There are going to be the 2 different sides, or you can place it on the A, B, C, or D on each of these sides. And I will explain exactly how that helps with scoring when it comes to the harvest, but just know you want to try to place a worker on the harvested area, and you also want to try to place your workers on the same rows as where the harvested tile is. So moving on to the last action, which is the magic action. And like I said, this works a little bit differently from the other 3 actions because the magic action allows you to take one of the other 3 actions, but a more enhanced version of that. So when you place your little sprite meeple onto magic, you are then going to choose either plant, tend, or prep. You are going to, instead of placing one of your workers out onto the garden board, like the other 3 actions, you will then have to place your worker onto whatever action you take, that main action spot. So if with my magic action, I decided to take the plant action, the enhanced plant action, I would place my worker onto the plant action, the main plant action, and I would not be able to take the main plant action for the rest of that day. So deciding to take the enhanced action, whether that is the plant, tend, or prep enhanced action, you are getting more from it. I will explain the more enhanced actions in a second, but you're getting more from that action, but you are then giving up your ability to do that action, that basic action, for the rest of the day. So it's this give and take of what you want to do and when you want to do it. So that is how the magic action is going to work. And the 3 different enhanced actions for plant, the plant enhanced action is it allows you to do the plant action twice. So you would take 2 tiles and place them onto the board. For tend, it allows you to do 2 tend actions. So you'll be allowed to flip and rotate 2 tiles on the garden board. And then the last of the 3 actions is the enhanced prep action. And the enhanced prep action is actually very different from the basic one. So you are actually going to be able to draw a skill. So skills are something that I haven't touched on yet, but this is something that you also get to do at the end of the round, which I'll get to. But when you take the enhanced prep action, you get to draw randomly 1 upgrade tile from the bag and place it onto the corresponding spot. So there are going to be plant upgrade tiles, there's going to be tend skill tiles as well as prep skill tiles, and you're going to place that tile underneath that specific action. And each of those 3 actions, plant, tend, and prep, can have 2 skill tokens below them. Magic, like I said, is very different from the other 3 and don't have any skill tokens, but you can have a maximum of 2 skill tokens on each of those 3 main actions. And this is going to give you additional things that you can do when you take that action. So for example, here with this tile, whenever I take the tend action, I would then be able to move that crop when I tend it. So instead of just being able to rotate it, I would then be able to flip it and move it and rotate it anywhere I wanted in the garden. So that's a really nice ability to have and something that you would be able to add as a skill for that action moving forward. And then lastly, for the enhanced prep action, after you gain that skill from the bag, you will then be able to move one of your sprite workers on the board. So if you have learned some new information, maybe from before you wanted to move one of your sprites that you initially placed, let's say on this 2, maybe you thought it was going to be in this 2 row, but now you're thinking more that it's in the 4 row, so you want to move that sprite at that location. And then lastly, for the sunrise phase, like I said, players are going to be taking turns, taking their actions, placing workers out, and this is going to continue until every player has placed out all 4 of their workers. But one additional thing that you can do on your turn at any time is score one of your challenge cards. So that can be either a challenge card that is already revealed in front of you, or any of the challenge cards that you have in your hand. But the challenge cards that you have in your hand also double as hidden information, so you can score this card, but once you have scored it, you do have to reveal it, and you do have to place whatever plot spot that is onto the harvest tracker. So if I achieved this one here, which is so corny, I would then place one of the cubes on A4 to let everyone know that the harvest card is not A4. Once you have completed one of your challenge cards, you will score it based off of what it is, and then you will place it into the discard pile. Moving on to the 3rd phase. So this is the sunset phase. This is going to be the end of the day. After all players have taken their 4 actions, they have scored some of their challenge cards, you are going to reveal the harvest. So this is when the farmer is going to come and harvest his 1 crop for the day, and you're going to reveal it, and turns out that it is A3. So what you are going to do then is you're going to score the harvest. And like I said before, with the harvest and placing your workers out onto the garden board, you are now going to go and look at all of the workers, and based off of where they are located, they're going to gain victory points based off of what tile is being harvested. All right, so how you're going to score the harvest tile is you're going to look at what tile is being harvested, and let's just say that this tile was placed here. It is untended. If a worker was on that tile, whatever player's worker that is, if it's untended, they would get 5 victory points. If it was tended, they would get 10 victory points. And obviously if there was no tile there, there would be no workers there because you can't place a worker on an empty spot. But that would be how would you score the actual tile. You would then go and look to see if any workers were in the same rows as that tile. So if there were any workers in the A row, or if there was any workers in the 3 row. So each worker that was on a tile in these same rows would get 1 victory point if they were untended. And if it was tended, they would get 2 victory points. And then lastly, for border spaces, you would look at what border spaces were in the same rows as the harvested tile. So in this situation, it is A and 3. So if there were any workers on the A spots or the 3 spots, they would get victory points based off of what the harvest tile was. So if it was untended or if there was no crop there, they would get 2 victory points. And if it was tended, they would get 4 victory points. And then once you were finished with all of the harvest scoring, you would look at the farmer bonus quickly to see if there was any bonus scoring for the harvest. And then you would go into a little bit of cleanup. For the cleanup, all players would take back all of their workers, place those beside their board. You would also then take all of the tiles that were in the rows of the harvested tiles. So you would take all the tiles from A, all the tiles from 3, place those back into the bag. Any players that still had some challenge cards that were incomplete in their hand, they would then place those in front of them because you no longer need that hidden information because we are going to be moving into the next day. So any of those cards that you still had in your hand, you would place in front of you. And then you would actually go into the next deck. So you would take the current active deck, which is the challenge deck A. You would take any of the still active cards. You would take the harvest card, any cards that were in the discard pile, and you would place those there. And then you would move into the new deck and place that, which it'll be challenge B deck. You would place that into the active deck spot. You would then take all of the harvest tracker tokens off of the harvest tracker because, like I said, we're moving into a new day, so all of that information can be forgotten. And then we'll move into the last phase, which is end of day. So the first thing that you're going to do for end of day is every player is going to gain a new tile. So these are the skill tiles, and every player is going to gain a new one. You're going to draw tiles out of the bag, player count +2. So for a 2-player game, I would simply draw 4 out of the bag, and each player is then going to be able to draft one of these tiles, starting from the player that has the least victory points, going to the player that has the most. So whatever player had the least would take a look at these 4, maybe draw 1, and place that into or onto their player board. The other player will then draft another one, place that onto the player board, and then the other 2 will go back into the bag. You are then going to set up for the next day, which you are just going to shuffle the active deck, so the deck B for this second day. Each player is going to get 1 face up in front of them, and then you're going to reveal cards until you have 5 cards revealed. So if you're playing a 5-player game, you wouldn't reveal anymore because you already have 5 pieces of information with each player's face-up card. But in a 2-player game, you would then reveal 3 more cards so that you have 5 pieces of information to add to the harvest tracker. So in this situation, we would add 1 to A2, 1 to B2, we would add 1 to C3, 1 to C4, and then lastly 1 to B3. So those would be the pieces of information that we would know. These 3 cards would then be placed at the bottom of the challenge deck. You would then refresh the pool of tiles here. I would take these 5 tiles, place them back in the bag, and refresh them with 5 new tiles. Each player would move their sprite token back to the magic spot, and then the first player token would be moved to the next player. Once all of that was finished, you would then be finished with the first day, and you would move into the next day. Things would continue like that, going through those 4 phases, like I've already explained, until you have reached the end of either day 3 or 4, depending on player count. And then whatever player has the most victory points will be the winner of Sprites and Sprouts. All right, friends, so that is going to be everything for today's preview of Sprites and Sprouts. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully this gave you a good feel of if it is something for you. Be sure if it is to go and check out the campaign down below. I will have it linked down there. A huge thank you again to Open Owl Studios for sponsoring today's video. I appreciate it very, very much. If you guys did enjoy this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Also, hit that subscribe button down below if you've yet to do so. We'd love to have you here in the garden. I love you guys so, so much. Remember, you are somebody's reason to smile, and I will see you in the next board game video. Bye, friends.